Welcome to the Rustic Garden. Today I'm going to show you the entire process for planting tomatoes indoors, from getting them into your seed trays to getting them into your transplant cups. And I have tomatoes that have been growing for different amounts of time, so you can just see the whole process. These are my tomato seeds that I collect from my garden. I also sell these. You can find them on my blog. And I'm going to start, I'm going to use Kentucky orange for the example today. This is a seed cell that I've already pre-moistened and pre-packed, and you can see how to do that on other videos. Quickly, you can save your cells from your other plants that you buy. And the bigger space that you have, the more room you have for root growth of the tomatoes, and that allows you to keep the tomato in these containers longer. But most of the seed starting cells look like this. You can grow your tomatoes in here for about 4 to 5 weeks. In 4 to 5 weeks they'll look like that, and then you have to get them out. This is the process that I use. Always put in 2 to 3 seeds. Even if you don't need all those plants, you don't want to be sitting around waiting for seeds to germinate and they don't germinate. This gives you better odds. And I put them all just into the corner. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. And of course I would do that whole area. Get the ones I spilled. Once they're in the seed cell, I push them down about 1/4 inch. Put some starting mix on top. Break a popsicle stick. Put on the date, 3-3, put on some initials, KO, Kentucky orange, and then it would go in there. Once your seeds are in the starting mix, between 5 and 10 days, you will get, your seeds will germinate and sprout. This is a Borghese tomato. I planted it on 224, and you can see that they have sprouted. Tomato seeds will sprout at different times, but if they don't sprout by the 10th day, then something happened with germination. So after a week, you'll have your seedlings coming up, and you want to make sure, if you're using fluorescent lights, I talk about this often, is you want the lights to be 1 to 2 inches above your tomato seedlings, or they will get leggy. And that leggy process is when the stems get really long and the plants sort of droop over. Another trick you can use is, if it's warm out, about 40 degrees and sunny, when your tomatoes first germinate, they're protected against the sun. Put this outside in the full sun like this for an hour or two. Let them feel what the sun feels like, and that will help them establish. If your tomatoes stay indoors and don't see the sun, these are tomatoes that have been growing about 5 weeks. They don't have resistance against the sun. So if you put them out in full sun, you would actually burn the leaves. So you have to acclimate these tomatoes slowly to the outdoors over a week process. So you get your seedlings in about a week. In 4 to 5 weeks, you will have tomatoes that look like this. And they're pretty good, pretty sturdy. But you're going to need to move them out of these cells, let's start with these, and into cups. I use styrofoam cups, which aren't the most green resource that you could use, but they work. They're inexpensive. I like that you can write on them. You can track what your tomatoes are, and I do recycle them year after year. Make sure you poke holes in your cups. And then you'll notice in here I have tomatoes that have just a single plant. They have 2 plants. If all your tomato seeds come up, I would recommend thinning them down to 1 plant. It just makes transplanting easier. If 2 come up, you can unthread them, but you do run the risk. The more damage that you do to the roots, the greater risk you have of transplant shock. So all you do is pinch out from the bottom gently a plug, and you can see the roots. Get your cup, your starting mix, and I make a big circle. This mix is pre-moistened, Drop in your tomato, bury it a little bit above where the starting mix level was so that you are covering some of the root. Whoop. Press it in. And that's your transplant. They should grow in here indoors for a week to let them get over any kind of transplant shock, and then they'll spend another week getting acclimated to the outdoors. Let's move that out of the way. If you have two plants, you can gently break the roots apart and separate them. But be careful. Two plants usually you can get away with, and they don't have any transplant shock. Just make sure I'm putting the right, using the right container. So if you have to separate two, do the same process. Gently pull them apart. Make the hole deep enough so that you can put the whole length of the root in like this and then backfill around it. You want the roots spaced out. And you can do that by collapsing the circle, the hole you made. And you want to fill it up. Pack it in gently. And this one I'll do in a bit. Let's move that. Now here you can see a large tomato that's doing very well, a small tomato. I'm just going to get rid of that and plant that. And over here, this is where it gets tricky. There are 3 tomatoes. And when you have 3 tomatoes, the roots really intertwine. You can try to break it apart by tapping the root ball and then unthreading the plants. Now these 3 plants are going to be more susceptible to transplant shock than if you just put a single plant in or you break 2 apart. But that process is the same too. It's up to you, but keep in mind, how many tomatoes do you really need in your garden? Again, make a hole pretty deep, drop the roots in, bury some of the stem, collapse the earth around them, put in some more, press them in, and your tomatoes have been transplanted into cups or containers. They'll need to grow in those containers for about a week so that they can form stronger roots, get over the transplant shock, and then they have to be acclimated to the outdoors. This year I'm using a shelving or a shelf greenhouse unit to keep my plants in versus just sitting them outside. But the acclimation process is basically giving them low doses of sun for about a week until they sort of toughen up and can handle it. Once this is filled with my transplants, I water from the bottom. In 20 or 30 minutes, whatever water is not absorbed, I pull out, and then these will just go into my grow closet. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check out my blog at www.therustedgarden.blogspot.com. I also have about 150 YouTube garden videos if you'd like to check them out. Thank you.